Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm playing in my art journal and I have some very special guests for us. Yes, indeed, there is actually going to be a whole lot of people joining us for this art journal page. Now, these people, they're not really people. They're my inner attorneys. That's what I call my inner critic, the gremlins, whatever you call them. For me, they're the inner attorneys. And they show up with a litany, a long list of proof as to why what I'm doing is no good, not right, not acceptable, needs to be redone. What was I thinking? How can you do this? Which you can probably guess that takes all the fun out of play for me. Well, these inner attorneys can get really, really loud if I leave them unchecked. But I've learned over time how to keep them in check. And it's just one little word that really, really kind of keeps them at a softer voice. Now, I'm not saying that these guys are ever totally gone. They're always there. And quite frankly, to have my inner attorneys, they're kind of helpful. Sometimes they bring up some good points, some useful things that I need to know, and they're a great big help. But they don't need to be driving the bus. They do not need to be in charge. They just need to have their say. They can whisper it nicely, and we're all good. Sometimes, though, they really get uptight and they want to scream and yell at me. And that's what happened while I was making this art journal page. Now, never fear, as soon as they showed up, I know what to do to get them to quiet down so I can keep playing. And I'm going to share that with you. So hopefully it makes it a little bit easier for you when you're playing, if anything like this happens to you, if you have any kind of critical voices, critical thoughts that kind of run through as you're playing, you know what you can say. But be sure to hang in for the end of the video, because at that point, I do something that pretty much tortures them, and I totally did it to torture them. It was the most fun I've ever had doing this, just because they were just kind of going around going, it was almost like, in Home Alone, running around, sort of screaming in my head, how could I do this? And I was just feeling so ornery. I was having so much fun messing with them. So, enough of my talking. Here's the page that I created with my inner attorneys. So here's what I started with. This is a round jelly plate that I made in a previous video, and I'll have a link down below the video so you can go check out how I made these prints. But I started cutting them out and playing around with them, and lo and behold, what did I see? But circles. Well, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But I also saw within those circles, once I cut it this far, I saw a rainbow. Now, it doesn't take a whole lot for me to see a rainbow, because I love finding rainbows in places. Well, of course, I've got to have clouds to go with my rainbow, because it wouldn't just be floating up in the air with nothing around it. So those are 2 pieces of cardstock, free-handed, cut loosely, and you can see I'm just trimming them up to get them to the shape that I want them to be, because you know what? These clouds can be anything that I want them to be. And I'm feeling very loose and free with my clouds. That'll be important later, so remember this. I'm easy to cut those out, loose and free, very happy with how things are going. And I needed something that would really stand out so the clouds would pop. So I decided to make the back of the page pink. That's pink paint there, it's Amsterdam paint I believe, and I'm hitting it with some water just to make it spread more easily on my unprimed art journal page here. And I'm just spreading it around sort of willy-nilly. Oh look, I didn't have enough paint, big deal. Not a big deal at all, just put some more down until I get the background pink. I'm not even going to wait for this thing to dry all the way before I put my clouds and my rainbow on it, because I really want to see what they look like. Now, in my head, everything is just moving along great right now, feeling very, very playful, having a great time, and I have none of those critical voices. Well, now I need to put a person. I want a person here underneath the rainbow, so I'm going to grab my Learning to Dance stencil that I created for Stencil Girl products. I'm just going to pick one of them about the size that I'm after, and I'm just going to put some acrylic paint on my palette. I've got a cosmetic sponge here, and I'm just going to stencil her right on. Now, if you're brand new to stenciling, if you want a very crisp image, the important thing is to use a small amount of paint or a very thick paint, and then to just go in a straight up and down motion. I have a hard time doing up and down because I really get in a rush and I want to go side to side. So I'm actually trying to concentrate here and go up and down because I would like her to be crisp. And she is, so I'm thrilled. Now at this point, this is when my inner attorneys went from silent to making a massive ruckus in my head because I am about to draw the most complex thing ever. This is going to be an amazing piece of art. It's going to make the artistry of the Taj Mahal look like nothing. Yeah, what am I drawing? Yeah, that's an umbrella. Yeah, can we say that, young children can draw this without any problem? And I'm absolutely having an inner sort of freak out, or I should say those inner attorneys are trying to freak me out over this. They're all upset that it's not perfect, that the post that's holding up the umbrella, it's actually on her wrist and not her hand. I mean, because, of course, an art journal page must be anatomically correct. Well, no. What am I saying in my head with this? That one little word that makes this completely possible for me to go forward and not get frozen by all of this criticism and fear that they want to spread in my head. And that one word is oops. Yep, outstanding opportunities presenting suddenly. That's why I painted over that umbrella. And the opportunity in that is I got to pull out the pencil and draw where the line should go, and then I'm just going to paint them in. I'm actually going to make my umbrella even bigger than what it was. And is that the end of the world? You would actually think it might have been pretty close to the end of the world, the way these inner attorneys in my head are going on, making all sorts of judgment and value statements. I mean, it's an umbrella in an art journal page, and it didn't come out exactly the way I had envisioned the first time. Yeah, to that, again, it's just oops. It's outstanding opportunities presenting suddenly. Now, one of the things that I do frequently when I'm gluing things down, and I'm about to take that committing step of actually gluing my rainbow and my clouds down, is I don't dedicate 45 minutes to an hour to actually applying gel medium to what I'm putting down. You notice how I'm just kind of loosely going around it? And that's frankly upsetting my inner attorneys, because they're pointing out to me that I frequently miss the edges of things, and things, I have to go back and add a little bit more here and there of gel medium, because that bothers them, but it doesn't really bother me. So I'm just going to call it an oops if the gel medium doesn't go everywhere. And then I can't remember which way my clouds were. I really liked the way they were, and then I'm like, how did I have them before? And my inner attorneys want me to go back and go, put them exactly the way they were. They were perfect that way. Don't change that. You know what? I just put them down, and I'm going to glue them down. And if they aren't in the exact same place, so be it. Because I'm going to call it an oops, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. Because you know what? Where I'm putting these clouds might be even better than where I'd planned. Might not be, but they might. Now, as I'm gluing these down, you'll notice that I'm kind of hanging over the edge here. And that's because I didn't know exactly where the edge would be until I glued them down. So now that it's down there, I'm just going to take some scissors and I'm going to cut them off. Sometimes it's actually easier to cut it from the back side than the front side. But either way, basically, I've just cut that little bit off, and now it looks nice and even with the edge of the page. Well, that little bit that I cut off got me thinking, I need some more clouds on here. So I grabbed that little cut off bit and turned it into a cloud to put up here to just kind of see what it would look like. I mean, after all, it's a piece of scrap paper. And as I looked, I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I need on here. So I'm thrilled about the clouds. However, my inner attorneys are not very happy with me. They feel that I've just been a little too ornery with them. So while I'm cutting out these clouds, they are just getting louder and louder in my head. And it's making it very difficult for me to make a cloud that I even remotely like. But first one didn't work. That's okay. I'm going to cut another one because this is scrap paper. Those inner attorneys can fuss and fuss about it. And each time I just say, oops, oh well, it's an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. And I'm going to grab another piece of paper. Well, and those inner attorneys, they thought they were going to stop me from this risky, crazy behavior of freehanding some paper clouds. Well, no, even if I don't like the ones I'm cutting, I can still try some other things, like grabbing something like a pencil, yes, that very elusive tool, and drawing a cloud. And even if I don't like that one, I can grab another piece of scrap paper. Now, I gotta tell you, the way these guys are acting in my head, you'd think I was actually writing this on platinum or something, and not a piece of scrap cardstock making all sorts of little cloud-like shapes. And they really wanted me to follow the lines here. And I so didn't follow the lines. I just used them as a guide. Cut it out because does it have to be exactly this way or that? Absolutely not. If anything isn't, quote, right or, quote, perfect, then I just call it an oops, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. Well, I decided to have some fun with those inner attorneys since they were trying to play with me. And one of the things is they wanted rain to come down from the clouds. And I decided I was going to do something almost the opposite. And I want to make it rain under the umbrella. Not everywhere else, just under the umbrella. So this will not be absolutely proper correct. I would say anatomically correct, but that's not what I mean. It's not naturally occurring in nature. That's it. It doesn't naturally occur in nature this way. This is not how rain works. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take one of those cloud scraps, and they're going to protect the pole on the umbrella, kind of mask it off for me, and then I'm going to come in with some yellow acrylic paint, and I'm going to stencil these raindrops on here. Now here's the thing with this. With yellow paint, I really wanted yellow, but yellow paint is fairly see-through no matter what brand or what kind. So if I want this to be really opaque and really pop as yellow, I have to put a lot of yellow paint on there. So I am pretty much gobbing this stuff on with my cosmetic sponge. There's a ton of it on there. Now I'm also not really in the mood to carefully mask anything off. I'll put a piece of paper next to something, but up in the top, those top raindrops, I'm just going to kind of gently go around it. Now part of me doing this way also is freaking out those inner attorneys because I might get some yellow on the umbrella, and we all know that that too would be the end of the world. Yep, see, I did it, and guess what? World did not end. Now this is a lot of paint that I have on here, and if I just take something like a Q-tip, all I have to do is wipe it across it. It was still damp, and I can just pull it right off. Crisis averted. But if I want to do more stuff on here, like more raindrops, I'm going to have to let this stuff dry. So I actually did break out the heat gun, hit this stuff with some heat so it was dry before I went on to the next step. Now I wanted this really nice lined up vertical rain kind of thing, but I'm not going to measure anything. So I'm just going to let the stencil do the hard work for me. I'm going to line up 2 of the rows of raindrops here, and then that's going to put that third one right on there. So I'm going to, of course, I have to lift it up a little bit to get them all. So maybe I should line them all up. But you know what? If I hadn't lined them all up, guess what I would have called it? Yeah, an oops. And again, this stuff is just so irritating my inner attorneys, and I'm kind of feeling a little ornery with it and kind of enjoying how much I'm freaking them out. So part of me is thinking, maybe I need to really push the limit with those inner attorneys and really, really do something to push it to the edge with them. And I'm going to do that, except it was actually not a plan. It really was the most wonderful oops. As I'm working with all of this paint, and it's so wet, you can see I got some of the yellow on the dancer there. I mean, that just is absolutely sending my inner attorneys into orbit. They are horrified that there might be some yellow paint over there. Now, apparently they don't know how easy something like that is to fix. They, of course, think that we need to come up with some kind of 82-page document that needs me to initial, sign, and do X, Y, and Z to. No. All I did was take a Q-tip with some of the leftover blue paint on my palette, and I'm just going to paint over with a Q-tip, and voila, that yellow is gone. Alright, so now I'm going to bring in a Stabilo pencil. This Stabilo pencil will write over anything, including things like very slick paint. Now it is water reactive, so if I get it wet, it's going to smear, but as long as I'm not going to put anything wet on top of it, it is all good. And just even touching the umbrella has made my inner attorneys try and tell me all the stuff that is wrong with that umbrella still. Like the fact that it's attached to her wrist instead of her hand. And I say, it's an oops. It's an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. And who knows, maybe umbrellas someday will be attached to wrists. Who knows? But what I do know is that umbrella is a great spot for journaling. Well, now it's time to add some sparkle to these clouds, because right now they're just kind of plain old white, and I'm feeling the need for a little bit of sparkle to go with those rainbows, or that rainbow. And I'm grabbing some glitter paste. This is by Viva Decor, and I'm basically smearing on a whole bunch of wonderful sparkle. Thing I really enjoy about glitter paste is I get the sparkle of glitter, but I don't have to worry with the mess, because you are listening to the person that pretty much knocks over the glitter, it seems like, every time I get it out. Now those 3 little clouds, since they aren't glued down yet, I can just put them in my hand and I can put the glitter paste right on them, and I'm going to set them aside and let them dry. Now I can hit them with a heat gun, or I can let it all air dry, but bottom line is, before I glue those 3 clouds down, I'm probably going to be, well, wise if I let it dry just a little bit. Now I did let them dry a little bit. They're not completely 100% dry, but they're fairly dry to the touch. So now what I'm doing is arranging them right under there, putting a little bit of gel medium on them, and you bet those inner attorneys are so irritated that I'm not getting the clouds in the exact same spot that they were before. That's okay. I just kind of love messing with them. And from this page, as I was creating this, it was so clear to me that I can either choose rainbows or rain. If I want to just say oops every time they say something negative to me, then I am choosing rainbows. And if I want to listen to all those critical voices in my head with all the things those inner attorneys are trying to convince me of, well, then I'm pretty much choosing the rain. So clearly today, I'm all for the rainbows instead of the rain. Now what I'm doing right now is taking an Inktense pencil and I'm just outlining everything to kind of give it an edge. Any kind of colored pencil would work for this. I just happen to have an Inktense pencil around. Now the surfaces that I'm writing over are not perfectly smooth, or they might be a little bit slick for a colored pencil. And what that means is I'm going to get a sort of sketchy look, not intentionally, or not that I have to concentrate for that. It just kind of happens because the pencil sort of skips around. Now what happens if a pencil skips around too much? If you're using something like an Inktense pencil, that smudge that I've got over that little cloud in the middle of the rainbow, you take something like a wet Q-tip and something that's water reactive will come right off of a painted surface. So that's one of the advantages. Now the page is feeling almost complete to me, but it needs a title. And I was just feeling ornery towards the inner attorneys. I just wanted to mess with them, kind of the way, I don't know, the way a little brother or a little sister always seems to want to mess with you. That's how I'm feeling about them. So I decided to do the thing that would freak them out the most. And that is handwrite the title around the umbrella without measuring, and I'm going to make it legible. Totally, they are like, are you going to get spaced correctly? Is it going to look good? Are you even going to spell it correctly? Which, quite frankly, they've got a good point there. I kind of do need to think about the letters in the order because I am notorious for misspelling very, very simple words when I'm writing. So as I'm doing this, I am freehanding it. I am making it legible because this page was all about rainbows or rain. And happily, luckily, everything does fit in here. Well, now you've seen how that one little word can quiet down those inner attorneys in my head, those gremlins, those critical voices, that inner critic, how it really softens them down so that they don't get in my way of having fun, of playing, of creating. Well, that was one of the ways that I rediscovered how to play, and I've discovered some other ways that worked for me, and I'm going to share those with you in a free workshop called Permission to Play. Now, you can find this workshop over on my blog at acolorfuljourney.com, and there'll be a link somewhere around here popping up, and if it's not, it'll be right below the video, so you can go directly to it and check it out. Thank you for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.